Welcome everyone to our headset webinar. We'll be focusing on building athlete mental strength for this one. Thank you all for registering. And in regards to this webinar, so this has been one that we've thought about doing for a while. And it often is a conversation that we have kind of before call it the fall season for athletes. We have this conversation before the kind of winter or new year season for athletes. And it kind of coincides with people have their off season, right? That's kind of the reason for doing this one in regards to the timing, is that a lot of athletes will spend their off season or time away. They're working on their technical skills. They're working on their physical skills, strength and conditioning. But a lot of athletes don't work on their mental skills during their time off. And we think this is the most important time possibly to work on those mental skills and getting ready for the upcoming season. Our agenda for today, we'll go through quick introductions. Even though I talked about it a little bit, we'll talk about it again, the importance of building mental strength for the upcoming season. We're going to talk about 5 key mental skills, and these are the ones that we focus a little bit more on through Headset. But then we're going to come up with interventions or activities that athletes can do. If you're an athlete, please take these in. If you're a support person of athletes, also helpful to take in this information. Many times athletes, they don't have anyone to be able to kind of touch on these mental skills and how they're developing. And at times they don't have answers. So the support system can kind of give some information to them. So it's just not an athlete-centric webinar. I think this is helpful for all those that are a part of sport with athletes. And then lastly, we'll wrap things up at the very end before we say goodbye. So my name is Dr. Peter Papadogiannis. I am a co-founder of Headset with a colleague of mine, good friend, Dr. Jason Galea. We're both practicing sports psychs. I'm in Toronto, Canada. Jay is in San Diego, California, in the US. Both mental performance consultants still, right? We have our private practices where we see athletes. We thought Headset would be something to create a few years ago because we needed it at one time. When we both played sport, we both played hockey, both goalies. Maybe that will kind of give you a little sense of where we're coming from as both former goalies, and that mental side being so important. But that kind of motivated us to go on and study it and help athletes that we work with in private practice through Headset as well. And we'll talk just a little bit about Headset before we get started with the interventions. But Jay and I also are coaches. Jay does it a lot more than I do these days. Jay created a whole hockey program in California called the San Diego Saints. And as well as doing the sports psych with his high-level clients, he is coaching and running a program for youth and kind of making their way through long-term player development in that sport. So a wealth of information that Jay could share. It's only me today, but I'll give Jay's contact info at the end of this. So as mentioned, Jay and I have been a part of a project and product and service called Headset. Headset's the first application that uses machine learning, artificial intelligence, these algorithms to customize mental skills training for each and every athlete. And this is important to Jay and I from the very beginning up until now, is that no two players are the same. They don't have the same challenges. And why should we kind of treat athletes mentally in the same way? We don't do it physically. We don't do it with their nutrition, right? Every athlete is different based on who they are in regards to their own unique needs. But in sports psychology, mental performance, often athletes are treated the same. A mental performance consultant or sports psychologist will come in and do a presentation. It's a presentation for everyone on the same topic. But it doesn't mean that the athlete's needs are the same as all the other people on their team or who are observing that presentation. So we think it needs to be customized and highly developed with specification for each athlete. Jay and I had hands on this application called Headset, but it wasn't us just alone. We have other sports psychology, mental performance colleagues and friends who have helped out, many coaches that we've coached with and know as coaches. And we asked athletes, what are these important mental skills that we need to work on? For us, it really comes down to five key mental skills. Here they are. This is what the interventions will be today. We call them pillars. They're five key mental skills. For us, it is awareness, confidence, regulation or stress management, like handling emotions and pressures, and motivation. So those are the five. On Headset, we work on more than five, but we often try to focus on these five because it is the most important. One, through research. Two, through our private practices. Like, we just know that these are the ones that come up over and over and over again. And for this webinar and for this content area, this has been one that we've wanted to do, like the importance of building mental strength and being proactive, because we know that athletes will have challenges, and athletes of different ages will have different challenges. We often kind of created this with the kind of university college athlete in mind, is that, yeah, they had to get ready for a new season. They had to go back to campus and get ready, but it could be for a pro athlete that's coming off their off season. But it could also be a high level amateur athlete who is younger, who's going to a new academy, a new school, a new sports team. And I think all of these interventions that we're going to move forward with will be helpful. The final kind of key piece here that I haven't talked about, but this mental prep that is done before the season and as the season continues, it really helps with consistency. What we have found that athletes that do the work before their season starts and continue it during the season, they have more consistency. They don't have the highs and lows. I call it the roller coaster ride in regards to mental skills and the mental challenges that an athlete has. So what I have found is that once an athlete prepares for it, they know what to do, even though the season hasn't started yet or these mental challenges haven't come up yet, but they're ready. And when they take them on, they don't have the big dips, right? There will be ups and downs, but it will be little dips along the way. And for me, that's consistency. When you are playing good often, and when I ask an athlete, if I can give you good performance often, would you take it? I've not had one athlete ever tell me no. Right? It's great when the highs are the highs, but it stinks when you go to the lower parts, right? When you're going down and you're not performing consistently and you're not getting the results that you expect of yourself, right? So the mental skills part, it really does help with consistency. All right, so now it's time. Let's get into those five pillars that I mentioned. We'll go through one by one, and there's an intervention or two for each one of these. So we're going to start with awareness, and awareness is the ability to be aware of and understand oneself and what allows oneself to perform at their very best. And in parentheses here, or not, like what doesn't allow you to perform at your very best, right? So we want to be able to find those factors or variables or environments that allow us to perform at our very best. When I ask athletes, when they come up to my office or I meet them with other formats, I ask them, how did your competition or training go? And I often get good or bad. That's the extreme, good, bad. But then when I press them a little bit, well, what was so good? People don't have answers. And when I ask them what was so bad, they also don't have answers. They just have a feeling that it was good or bad. But for me, it's really important to understand what are the components, the elements that make a good performance, and to track and remember it. Tracking is absolutely essential. Very few athletes at a high level track their performances, and it still astonishes me that very few people do it. So if you are an athlete, if you are a support person of an athlete, let's start to track our mental performances. And that will help us understand why we are behaving in a certain way or feeling in a certain way. And that's awareness, right? Greater awareness comes from you understanding yourself better within the context of sport. The first awareness piece is knowing your strengths. Like, what are they? And a lot of times, and this is an interesting conversation when you have with someone face to face, is that you ask them, what are your strengths? And I find at times athletes at various ages and competitive levels don't know. They really don't, or they'll just give you a couple things. And I think it's important to kind of build up that strength list. So I ask athletes before the season starts, or at the beginning, if I meet them at the beginning of the season, like, write down all your strengths as an athlete: mental, physical, right? Technical, write them all down and have them present. I also ask them for opportunities for development. Athletes will come to me, oh, you want my weaknesses? No, I don't want your weaknesses, because what you perceive as a weakness, if I compare you versus a general population, they're not weaknesses. Are they opportunities for development in your sport? Absolutely. But they're not a weakness, they're just opportunities. So I'll ask athletes, also write down all the opportunities for development you think you may have before the season, going into it, or at the very beginning of a season. So that's helpful, right? Put down all your strengths, put down all your opportunities for development. But for me, that's not enough, because as individuals, athletes are biased, right? And they're not always the greatest assessors of their own strengths. So I tell them, ask 3 people who know you as an athlete to rate you on your strengths as an athlete and opportunities for development. I go, get people who are valid and reliable assessors. You don't want to grab a coach from 5 years ago. You want to get someone who can assess you in the last 3 months, max. Maybe a coach from last year, but you can get a coach. You can get your fellow athletes, competitors, just people who know you in your sport. And then ask them, where do you think I can develop? And then you have to keep track of them. Over time, you have to be able to figure out, where am I going to use my strengths? Coming into the season, I tell athletes, you got to leverage your strengths. If you don't know what those are, it's going to be hard to. But if you know what your strengths are, you're going into that first practice training session or competition knowing what your strengths are, and you're going to leverage them. And then over time, those opportunities for development, you're going to work on them. And those could be what are called emerging strengths, right? So emerging strengths are nice, and we could add it to our strength list as we work through them. Number 2 for awareness for me, you have to track your performances mentally after competition. And on the right-hand side of this PowerPoint slide is a performance debrief. This is just from a document that I created, but we use this on Headset. After every performance that a person on Headset puts in their calendar, they have to do a debrief mentally. They have to rate their performance mentally. They have to tell us about their confidence. They have to tell us about their resilience. They have to tell us about their focus. But it's not outcome-based. It's not based on did you win or lose, did you get a personal best or not. It's just rating your mental performance. So that's important. Over time, when you track your mental performances, you look for patterns. When I perform good, what is it? When I perform great, what is it? When I don't perform good or great, what gets in the way? So over time, you'll figure out what you are doing, and you'll leverage it more to continue to be consistent at a good or great level. If you are figuring out patterns from normal or poor performances, how can I improve those to make them good? How do we move the poor ones to good? How do we move the normal ones to good, right? It's just a little shift, right? And that's consistency. But we can't understand consistency without tracking it. And that is key for awareness. This next slide is with confidence, and we'll go through confidence, but it still is tracking. So this one has a little confidence awareness piece combo to it. Confidence for us at Headset is an individual's belief in their abilities, but it has to be a genuine belief, right? That faking it to making it could be helpful at times. I'm not taking it fully away, but you have to have some basis for this is something that I believe in, right? You have to have something to hold on to, some fact, some data point to say, you know what? There's some genuine belief there, right? So it's got to be coming from within. For us, genuine belief comes from tracking your trainings. Yes, practice, training, track them too. It won't be the same tracking as you do for your competition. For us, we call it the 3-to-1 rule, and we have a mental workout that tracks the 3-to-1 rule. After every practice or training, or close to everyone, I tell athletes, track your training, put the date down, and use a 3-to-1 rule. The 3-to-1 rule is 3 things that you are proud of, that you did well, that you accomplished. And then the 1 is 1 thing that you can improve on. I often hear the opposite. I have athletes give me 3 things they need to improve on, was maybe one thing they did well. Let's flip the script. If there are 2 things to improve on, there's 6 things that went well, right? So it should be more on the what went well, accomplished versus the improvement. You need to track these on your phone, on headset. If you're still using paper and pencil and you're tracking it through old school way, you still need to track it to look at the patterns. And I have here become a bricklayer, have an image here of a bricklayer, but confidence through tracking starts at the bottom and it moves its way up, right? It's like we're building a wall, building a structure, right? So we have to be able to track it and build upon them. And then this will help us with, hey, maybe this is an emerging strength. So that's that confidence awareness piece. Once you track your training and your practices, then you can kind of go, well, this is going well. And maybe this is one thing that I can improve on in the future. And maybe that improvement piece will be a pattern. Next is resilience, or next pillar. So this is the positive capacity of an athlete to cope with stress and pressure, and also future stress and pressure. And this is where resilience is very helpful for building mental strength going into the season, because we need to build protective skills. I'll often tell athletes, like, it's almost like your superhero powers. Like Captain America has a shield. Like, you got to protect yourself, right? But you have to know what are your skills, your mental skills to help you protect yourself, because there are going to be challenges. It's how you weather the challenges. For resilience, one of the most important mental skills to work on specifically is controlling the controllables. Controlling the controllables, we can do this before the season start. We can also do it as a season starts and progresses. To focus more on controlling the factors that are within your control. Athletes often spend more time with things out of their control. They are a distraction. They take energy away from us, physical energy, cognitive energy, emotional energy. So I often tell athletes, go through the list. Like, what are things in your sport that are under your control? List all of them, right? Giving effort, being mentally prepared, having a mental pre-training, pre-competition routine, getting to the pitch, the arena, the stadium early enough to do your mental skills training. How do you come back from challenges, right? How do you fail from mistakes? Those are all under your control. List all of the things that are out of your control. You may influence your coach. You can't control your coach or manager. You can't control the fans. You can't control teammates. You can influence, but you can't control them. Can't control the weather. So under your control, out of your control. Here's another one where you may want to get a rater, right? Or if you're a support person listening, maybe you want to help that person with the controllable versus the uncontrollable aspect. And as an athlete, I tell them, bring it with you. Have it on your phone. Like, go, all right, I'm getting ready. Let me focus on things out of my control. Okay, I can control this. Stretching, I can control this. Activation, I can control this. Look through my 3-to-1 rule before I compete. I can look at video of myself performing well, right? Those are all things under your control, and being able to focus on those more so. All right, final 2 pillars. Motivation is one, and then regulation will be the final one for us. So motivation, I'm taking a little different spin on it. So I'll define it as how we define it through headset. So motivation is an intrinsic need to strive for competence or mastery, like to feel good about yourself within your sport, to enjoy it, and to feel good about yourself, your well-being within your sport. That competence and enjoyment influence well-being. They kind of fit really well together. But for this time around, for this webinar, I'm going to take a different approach. I want to focus on the social component of motivation that influences intrinsic needs. So for the social motivation piece, I want to think about network and our social network. And our social network is really important to figure out before a season start or at the very beginning. If you're already in your season, start thinking about your network. and who you need to think about to reach out to on a regular basis. You need to be proactive as an athlete. If you are a support system, you got to tell the athlete, who's your support system? You got to go out and get him, because they're not always going to come to you. They're out of your control. But what you can have within your control is putting them into your schedule and say, I'm reaching out to this person, right? Being proactive. So as an athlete, think about all of your social network. It's probably pretty big, but then you have to narrow it down. Who are the people I can trust? Who are the people I can relate to? Who are the people who are going to help me out in my time of need? And those needs are different. And from this PowerPoint slide, we have emotional support. Who can we go to for encouragement? For someone to listen to us when things aren't going well or going well. Sometimes it's nice just to say things are going well, and for someone to listen to us. Informational support is different. That is someone who we go to get information. Maybe it is a strength and conditioning coach to go to that person and say, okay, how can I activate better? Tangible support is when someone shows us, right, how to be able to do that. Like, how do I activate? Just not what information is out there. How do I actually do it? Can you show me? And the same for the psychological support. Like, can you show me? Like, for us at Headset, we show people through our mental workouts how to do it. Right? We have to show our athletes how to prepare mentally, how to take on those challenges that come with the season. And here are just some people who athletes can reach out to, right? Some are at the core in regards to the mental skills. Maybe it's a mental performance consultant. Maybe it's a counselor at school. And then we extend it, right? Maybe it's the physical therapist. Maybe it's a sport med physician. And on the outer bands, it might be coaches, teammates, family. So take the rings and see who fits into the support system. If you are a support of the athlete, bring it to them. Okay, let's be proactive. Proactive is so important here, because often the social network is taken for granted. They'll reach out, they care about me, out of our control. So let's put it within our control. Final one for us is regulation. For regulation this time around, I'm not looking at within the sport in training or competition for regulation, like that acute piece in regards to stress management when you're in it within your sport. For me, it's a more broader look at regulation, a little bit more holistic look at regulation. Regulation or stress management is the ability to alter and control our emotions and behavior in order to succeed at a specific task at our sport. So in general, these are some of the things that can be done to be able to help us control our emotions and stress, right? So a little bit bigger. One is general breathing exercises. I recommend that the athlete each day just work on their breathing. If there are points of time during the day where things are sped up, you might just say, okay, things are speeding up for me. I'm just going to get centered and grounded. I'm going to do some breathing exercises, and then I'm going to just focus on that. For other people, it's doing their breathing in the morning. For others, it's breathing at night. If we want to add some additional pieces to it, that's known as mindfulness, right? Where you're bringing the cognitive and breathing together, right? And there's some apps. Calm is one that's there that people can use, but there's lots of different breathing apps and mindfulness apps that you can use, but it's about being grounded, right? So when we're on the go, and things are stressful, things are speed up, it's just time to slow things down. When we slow things down, we can think a little bit better, we can control things a little bit better. So that's important. Another one would be making a playlist, music playlist, right? To be able to help on those times when things are a little sped up or feeling stressed, that's helpful. Prayer or the spiritual side, helpful for athletes, just saying a prayer or looking at a prayer, or it could be motivational quotes or quotes from someone, helpful just to slow things down. And then lastly, it could be going out for a walk, but it's just the nature part. Like sometimes getting out for into nature is just really helpful to slow things down. Also getting proper rest and sleep, right? Going to bed on time. And here's one, and we have athletes who go onto website, go onto Headset, and sign up and register, but on Headset, we get the actual time when someone actually, excuse me, registers. And I'm so surprised that so many athletes register for Headset really late, like early in the morning, like 1, 2 o'clock. And I'm much older than the athletes that use Headset for the most part, but that's not proper rest, right? It really isn't. I don't even know what the next day, maybe it's sleeping in, but for many, it's not. It's school, it's training. So we gotta get proper sleep and getting into that routine. And then lastly, it's eating healthy foods that help us stay calm with our emotions and mood and stress. So be strategic with the foods that you eat that help with emotions and mood and regulation. All right, so that's it for me. You can at any time jump on social. You can join us on Instagram. We have some Instagram lives from time to time. We're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. We're posting each and every week. We have a newsletter that we send out pretty well every month. If you want to register for Headset or know someone that wants to, send it over to them as well. If you want to get a hold of us through email, you can as well. At the very bottom is our info@headsetsports.com email. If you want to get a hold of me, Peter at Headset Sports. If you want to get a hold of Jay, please feel free, jay@headsetsports.com. But let's stay connected. And if there are any pieces that, okay, I want him to explain it a little bit more, I want them to share something with me, just reach out. The Peter at Headset Sports email, send it to me directly. If not, and you want to send it to the info@Headset Sports, someone from Headset will send it over to me. So just some helpful hints to be able to help the athlete. If you're an athlete, take these on, start with one of them. That's a helpful start, and then add to them. If you're a support person, maybe bring one up to the athlete, and then you can work your way through it with them. So I appreciate it. Jay appreciates it, as well as the rest of the Headset team for joining us. And again, if you have any questions, you let us know. So have a good one, everyone. We'll be in touch soon. Bye-bye.